Welcome back. In the previous video, we understood a critical concept called participant modeling, and we also understood process modeling, which is how do these participants interact among each other. In this video, we shall take this understanding further. What we will do jointly is to build supply chains together. And at the end of the video, what you should be able to do is to try and build supply chains for products that you typically procure on a daily basis. And at the end of this video, you will also thus be in a better position to appreciate the breadth of supply chain management. Let's continue that whole soap detergent example. So you went out and bought some soap in the past, and let's say that you also need to go out and buy some detergent now. You want to buy Ariel. Where do you go and buy Ariel? The same place that you buy your soap, your retail shelves, in a retailer next to you. And everything that we spoke about for your cake of soap holds true for your detergent also. There is a distributor who runs a distribution center from where the product actually reaches the shelves of the retail store. In the specific instance of Ariel, we have a manufacturer, Procter & Gamble, who is actually going to be supplying product to the distributor. Now this detergent, Ariel, comes in two form factors. There is the powder, which you could put into a washing machine, or there is a cake of soap that you could use to hand wash your clothes. So not only is it two product lines, the implications of this are also in terms of how those form factors are delivered to you. The powder comes in a plastic tub, and the cake of soap comes in a piece of paper which is wrapped around it, and that paper is actually coated with a plastic material on the inside. So in order for Ariel to be able to provide you that powder in the tub, somebody needs to be making those plastic tubs and supplying it to Procter & Gamble. Obviously, Procter & Gamble is not a tub manufacturer. So where is this coming from? If you were to Google plastic tub manufacturers in India, you would find a big list. One of them could be a participant here called National Vinyl in this supply chain. National Vinyl is supplying this tub to P&G. Similarly, the paper that is wrapped around the cake of soap is actually probably coming to P&G from some paper manufacturer. For the sake of this example, let's assume it's ITC Bhadrachalam. Stepping further back into the chain, National Vinyl also probably has a whole bunch of suppliers who are giving them a bunch of different chemicals which need to be brought together to make that plastic tub. And similarly, ITC Bhadrachalam probably is interacting at some level with the timber industry to ensure that that is the basic raw material which is required for this paper is coming into their plant so that they can make this paper, supply it to P&G, and so on until ultimately that timber is converted to a wrapping around a piece of soap which reaches you as an end customer. So in order for you to be able to buy Ariel, you can potentially see the number of participants involved and the interactions between them. This is a very simplistic view of a detergent supply chain. Now let's complicate things a little more. We also spoke specifically about the cell phone that you actually needed to buy. So let's assume that you actually need to go out and buy a Samsung smartphone. Where do you get this? You get it at a retail shelf. And what kind of a retailer is it? It's not a retailer who sells the soap and the detergent, but it's a specialty store, let us say a Chroma or a Sangeeta. So you walk into the store and decide to buy a Samsung smartphone. How is this phone again reaching this shelf of the store? Probably again through a distributor and through the distributor's distribution center. The complexity here arises from the fact that these Samsung smartphones are not made or manufactured in India. Yes, we all know Samsung is a Korean brand, but much like everything else, 90% of the Samsung phones are probably manufactured in China. So these phones have reached your Sangeeta store shelf all the way from China. So potentially, who could be the multiple participants involved in this? There's the manufacturing plant in China. There could be a distribution center or a storage space attached to the manufacturer's plant where the completed or completely manufactured cell phones are stored. Subsequent to the manufacturer's distribution center, product needs to move from there to an exit port in China. There is some participant who's physically moving the product to. Subsequent to the exit port in China, somebody needs to actually comply with all the export regulations of China, ensure that the product is loaded onto some carrier, maybe an ocean container or an aircraft or whatever it is. And somebody needs to manage all these processes and ensure that these phones safely reach the rest of the world, including India. So there are other participants there with additional responsibilities too. So now these phones have reached the entry port in India, let us say Chennai. Again, there are a bunch of import restrictions that could apply and regulations that do apply, and we need to ensure that these regulations are complied with, that the necessary customs clearances are done, and only then the product brought in. And now the product is ready for distribution within the rest of India. So the distributor picks it up, and one specific unit of that which you have bought also has ended up on the specific retailer's shelf. So we have seen the complications involved when the supply chain that we speak about is actually global. Similarly, we are not done. If you look at the manufacturer himself, a cell phone being a complex piece of assembly probably has a lot of components which are manufactured outside of Samsung. So it is very, very likely that there are critical sub-assemblies within this phone which are coming into the Samsung manufacturing plant in China from the rest of the world. They could be from Taiwan, they could be from Japan, and some of the raw materials might even be making its way into the Chinese manufacturing plant from India. So all the issues that we spoke about in terms of export and import when crossing an international boundary apply equally to all these subcomponents and raw materials that need to flow into the manufacturing plant. So now we have looked at a cell phone supply chain which has a lot more players and could get a lot more complex. So we have looked at two different types of supply chains. And the two critical parts that we would want to emphasize again out here is the number of players involved in getting any product into your hands, that is the participants, and the nature of interactions between all these different participants, which is the process. So in summary, we have done participant modeling and process modeling for two different types of supply chains. Going forward, what we will look at in the next video is that given the fact that there are so many participants and there is a large degree of orchestration that needs to happen for things to land up in your hands when you need them, it is very likely that something goes wrong somewhere. And we will look at specific examples and see what are the different things that could actually go wrong within the supply chain and what is the impact of that going wrong within the supply chain. Before we end, I would want to leave you with a question. When you walk across the street to the neighborhood drugstore to buy a strip of Disprin, you assume that you will find it when you pay the money. Now, I want you to step back and think about all the different participants involved in ensuring that the strip of Disprin is available across the counter when you need it. It's again going to be a slightly different flavor of a supply chain. As a hint, I would want you to also be cognizant of the different health and regulatory implications thereof for this kind of a supply chain. So think of a pharma supply chain and try to draw it out.